If you have seen images of recent protests in China, then you probably noticed the protesters holding a blank sheet of white paper like this one. In China, protests are a rare occurrence, and even when it happens, it is against construction companies not delivering their promise or banks in provincial level government, as we saw in the banking crisis a few months back. So the protests that are currently taking place in China are extremely concerning for the CCP, as it is against Xi, the party, and their zero-COVID policy. Despite the attempts to censor any images from the protest, the Chinese people are finding new and creative methods to voice their discontent. Chinese protesters have turned to a blank sheet of paper to express their anger over the COVID-19 restrictions. Images and videos circulating online show that university students in the cities of Nanjing and Beijing are holding up sheets of paper in silent protest, a tactic used in part to evade censorship and arrests. The widespread anger and protests were triggered by an apartment fire that killed 10 people in Urumqi, a far western city in Xinjiang, which had been under lockdown for over 100 days. This resulted in the residents not being able to escape the burning building, as it was locked and fenced up by the COVID workers. In Shanghai, late on Saturday, a crowd started gathering to hold a candlelight vigil for the Urumqi victims, in which the use of these white sheets was seen. Similar sheets of paper could be seen in a separate gathering held at Beijing's prestigious Tsinghua University and along the Chinese capital's Third Ring Road near Liangma River. "The white paper represents everything we cannot say," said Johnny, 26, who took part in one of the Liangma River gatherings. He also added, "I came to pay respects to the victims of the fire. I hope we can see an end to all of these COVID restrictions. We want to live a normal life again. We want to have dignity." The white paper is intended to be a comment on the state-sanctioned censorship and make a statement about protesters being silenced. It can also be seen as a way of defying authorities, as protesters can't be arrested for holding up signs which aren't explicitly critical of the government. Netizens also showed solidarity by posting photos of blank squares or photos of themselves holding the blank sheet of paper. Although somewhat ironically, by Sunday morning the hashtag #WhitePaperExercise was blocked by the Chinese censors on Weibo and WeChat. White is also a funeral color in China, so it is also possible that the plain white paper is also meant to pay respects to the lives lost in the apartment fire in Urumqi. There's also been one pregnant woman who miscarried after being refused entry to a hospital in January. A bus crash that killed 27 passengers who were being transferred to a quarantine facility. And one young boy died from gas poisoning while under lockdown in his home in Lanzhou. While many of the protests were largely peaceful, the protesters in Shanghai were met with extreme violence by the police. One widely shared video showed a lone woman standing on the steps of the Communication University in Nanjing with a piece of paper before an unidentified man came and snatched it, which subsequently resulted in people taking to university steps with blank sheets of paper illuminated against the night sky by flashlights from their mobile phones. This form of protest was also seen in Hong Kong to evade censorship or arrest. The activists in Hong Kong used it to raise awareness and fight the national security law, which criminalizes secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign external forces, which in CCP's eyes could be anything said in a negative light about the government. In the age of censorship and oppression, a sheet of unspoiled blank paper is emerging as a powerful symbol of protest. This overriding message is one of defiance. By holding a blank sheet of paper, protesters are fighting against the oppressive powers and are wrestling back the power that was lost to the oppressive regime that wishes to silence them. It also simultaneously mocks the draconian censorship practices. As BBC's China correspondent Stephen McDonnell eloquently said, "This is not only a statement about dissent being silenced here, it's also an up yours to the authorities, as if to say, 'Are you going to arrest me for holding a sign saying nothing?'" If you liked the video, do consider liking and subscribing to our channel.